Welcome to FO Talks. With me is Leonardo Vivas. He is a professor of political economy at Lesley University. Today we're going to be talking about Bolivia. It's a landlocked country in South America and they're going to elections on the 17th of August. Leonardo, can you tell us why is this election important and why should the world care about it?
Hello, hi to everyone. I don't think there would be a general interest in what's happening in Bolivia at the moment. It's a small country, uh, and a landlocked country in South America. But there is, I would say, two reasons why it should interest us. And the first is uh, that in the last decades, most of the conflicts in Latin America have been solved through democratic means. Most of them. We have, of course, some exceptions like Cuba, Venezuela, or Nicaragua, and increasingly in El Salvador. But otherwise, most of the countries have solved their disputes, which are very deep and run deep in many parts, left, right, different, and the different economic woes that the country has been suffering. But most of these conflicts have been solved democratically. So that is, and apparently this is going to be the case in Bolivia. There's going to be a winner, there's going to be a loser, and most probably it will be accepted by the institutions in the country. The second aspect which should interest us is the demise of MAS, which goes for Movimiento al Socialismo, or Movement towards Socialism, which was created uh, um, by Evo Morales in the 90s as a result of his campaigning with the Aymara indigenous movement. And it has been at the center of Bolivian politics for almost 30 years now. And it is very likely that the influence, the hegemony of MAS in Bolivia is going to come to an end in this election. So that is the second reason why we should be interested, because this might affect, let's say, the local geopolitics of Latin America.
You've already mentioned Evo Morales, and he has played a key role in shaping up Bolivia to what it is today. But can you tell us more about the other players that are in the race for this election?
Yeah, well, actually, how the race is playing out has to do with this question of the demise of MAS, because as a result of the way that Evo Morales conducted his politics in the last 10 years, uh, as a result of his obsession to hold on to power, there was a political crisis. There was what in the Latin American language of the last century would call a pronunciamiento, pronouncement, the military, that asked him to step down. That was in 2019, when he wanted to he wanted to run, and not only wanted to run, he wanted to go over decisions by the Constitutional Court and by a referendum that decided he should not run again. So that became a political crisis. So as a result, there was an interim government after he stepped down that lasted for a year. And then there were presidential elections again. And Luis Arce, who used to be his Minister of Finance, won the election. And he is currently the president. But the circumstances have changed a lot from then and now. So as a result of this, we have two contenders mainly in the race from MAS. One is the president of the Senate, Mr. Rodriguez, Andronico Rodriguez, and and the other one is another leader who has been who used to be the Minister of the Interior of Luis Arce, and he is supported by Arce. But both are running very low on the opinion polls, and they haven't really gained ground in the election. The other two are from the right, and one is kind of center right, more a businessman, and he let me see, his name is um, Samuel Doria. He's a businessman with a very rich man, but he is a more moderate candidate, and he's trying to play out as somebody that would bring back the country together. The other one is Tuto Quiroga, who is a more conservative, more right wing, and what he is promising is to go through a classic process of economic reform, negotiated with the IMF, bringing stability to the country. So those are the main players, the two from us and the two from the right.
What about Luis Arce? He's the current president, and of course, he belongs to Evo Morales' party. Evo Morales was the former president. What about them? How much of an influence are they in this election?
Well, it's an interesting case because Luis Arce, you know that Bolivia during the first part of Evo Morales' rule, it was what you could call a Bolivian miracle in the sense that not only were they advancing very strong poverty alleviation measures, taken from other experiences in Latin America, Brazil, Mexico, and others, and bringing in the indigenous movement, which had been segregated for many years, and this was possible because they had a very sound economy based on gas production. At first, it was a part for an investment, and then they nationalized the gas industry. Still, for many years, it worked fine. It produced a number of inflow of foreign exchange earnings that helped put on all these reforms. And the man who was at the helm of this economic miracle, so-called miracle, was Luis Arce. After the crisis that brought down Evo Morales and the interim government, he was elected as president. But now the situation has changed. The state run companies for gas have been doing very badly. The earnings have been dropping at a very very high speed, and it's finding now on a crisis, a financial crisis, and like there's some exchange controls, and the parallel is running kind of to 2 times at the established relation with the dollar, the official exchange rate. So you have and this has brought a slowing down of growth. So now the situation has changed dramatically, and that is the reason why Luis Arce is not running for re-election, because his numbers are really underwater.
But we've got Evo Morales saying that he wants to run again, even though the Supreme Court has banned him from running. What is he trying to do in this? Is he trying to play kingmaker, or is he trying to just play spoilsport?
Well, after his fall from power, he still had a very important influence, not only in the Mas party, but also in his movement. the cocaleros. He was the organizer of the cocalero movement in the highlands of Bolivia. But there's three reasons why he's not running. The first is that when you mentioned is that the Constitutional Court has banned him from running, and there was a definite rule that took place very recently. The second reason is because his political influence has diminished dramatically. He tried to stage some protests, saying that they were going to support him to be candidate again, and that didn't fly. And the third, that he has been prosecuted for statutory rape because he had a relationship with a 15-year-old girl, and she had a child from him. So and apparently there's this history of him in not only in Bolivia but even in Argentina and other places where he had these personal things, these tendencies of being a pedophile. So that's and of course I think those three reasons have made it. So he is not supporting any of the other candidates of MAS, and he is calling for a no vote.
We've spoken about the major candidates, and of course, candidates who are on the bench. They can't really play, Luis Arce and Evo Morales, but still they have a major say in this game. There's one player that we haven't talked about, and I'd really want to know your insights on that, and that is the army. Now, last year there was a coup attempt in Bolivia, and President Luis Arce says that it was, well, he put the blame on two parties. He said right-wing forces were behind it. He also blamed Evo Morales. Where is the military? Are they politically divided, or do you think they have a major role to play in this upcoming election?
Well, that was an interesting thing. I remember I was in a meeting with some Venezuelan friends and some Bolivian people from nonprofit organizations, and at the time the coup, the supposed coup was taking place, and it was not really a coup; it was more kind of a staged thing. Apparently, the chief of the army was trying to get involved politically, and he kind of went out, but he was, as you would say in football, he was offside, and he played his card too quickly, or trying to, and he was totally rejected not only by the president but also by the society at large, and even some people were argued that he was in cahoots with the president to stage this so-called coup. So that really didn't have a lot of influence, and I don't think that it's having an influence today. Furthermore, when the real coup, what they call the pronunciamiento, happened in 2019, that brought down, that made Evo Morales step down from power, the military followed the constitutional procedures, which is that the Senate appoints somebody, and that is the interim president until a new election were called. And despite the legalities, and some people said it was not legal, there was an interim president who was at the time the vice president of the Senate, Janine Áñez, and she was president for a year. And the military did not get involved, and after that incident last year, the military have not been involved. So I don't think there is going to be any. And furthermore, there has been no military movement on the streets in Bolivia apart from that minor incident last year. So I don't anticipate a great involvement of the army here.
So, what do you think is the core issue then in this election? Do you think is the economy, or is it indigenous identity? Pardon me, or is it the growing class divide in Bolivia? What do you think is going to drive this election?
Well, I would say that there have been kind of two stages. During the first part of Morales' rule, there was obviously a very important part of an indigenous identity on the table, mixed with a progressive policy of bringing marginalized people into the economy, into society. I'll just mention a detail here. When they were discussing the Constitution, in that Bolivia is called a plurinational republic. What it means is it is admitting that you have different parts, components, and some of these parts are the indigenous groups. And when they were discussing the Constitution, they even were discussing if they should have the vote on an individual basis or should they vote by indigenous groups. So that was an interesting debate because it admitted that there was this thing that was very important to the country. But this has changed over the years after all the political changes and advancements and overcoming the worst of poverty in Bolivia. The indigenous has become the new normal. I mean, it's not something that is out of hand or that is on the table anymore. It's kind of a new normal, indigenous participation in politics, in society. And so now it's the economy which is playing more of a role, especially because since the last 7 or 8 years it has been of economic collapse, and well, not collapse, it's collapses now, but decline, and so now this is essentially who are playing a greater role are the younger generations, which are the main component of the electoral, voting, and these are young, more urban, and more educated. So they are more worried about their future, their role in society. So the economy has become the main discussion in Bolivia, and it's very difficult for MAS, which has been the hegemonic powerhouse in Bolivia, to have a credible narrative because they are at the origin of the crisis. So there's no way they can portray themselves as a solution when they are exactly part of the problem. And that's the reason why you have the comeback of the different right movements in the country.
Do you think the young people are going to play an important role in this election in Bolivia? I mean, very rarely do you see people talking about youngsters getting into politics, but do you think that the case is different in Bolivia?
Yeah, because I would say that in the recent past, most of these youngsters were mobilized into the Evo Morales movement. But nowadays, this has changed. There is no clear. The Evo Morales movement has been weakened to a greater extent. The composition of the indigenous has changed as well. For instance, you have the difference between the highlands and the lowlands indigenous. The highland indigenous are with Evo Morales, but the lowland indigenous people are more supportive of the right-wing candidates. So the mixture is not favorable. And look, it could happen. It could happen that there is a two-round election in Bolivia. We're having the one this 17th. Uh, and it's not impossible that you could have the two main right-wing candidates being in the first and second place in the first round. So that's not impossible. I'm not sure it will happen because there's another factor in Bolivian politics, and it's been there several times, is that part of the Evo Morales vote or the mass vote is kind of underwater. It doesn't show until the last moment. So we don't know if that's going to take place in this election, but that might happen. So you might have one candidate from Mas and one candidate from the right, and then we will have a second round.
So you think a second round is a guarantee? It's going to happen?
Oh
There's no way
yeah.
around it?
Oh yes. I think it's going to happen, and if it does, and if we have a different, which I think is the most likely result, somebody from either one of the two right-wing candidates, that would bring Bolivia more to the normal kind of electoral politics, which means that, 1 year, one candidate of the right wins, and the next election, the candidate of the left wins. And if that's been the case, look at all, it already happened in Argentina after so many years of Peronism being the hegemonic force. And it happened in Brazil, where you had Bolsonaro first, and then you have Lula, and then before Bolsonaro was Lula. And it happened in Chile, happened recently in Ecuador with Noboa. So, I mean, it's becoming the new normal. And that's why I was mentioning at the beginning why this is so important, because what this means is that despite all the problems, there is kind of a normalization of electoral politics in the region.
I want to just zoom out a little bit, actually, a lot. How do you think? So, Bolivia is in South America. The US has, for decades, played an active role and interest in the region. How do you think they are viewing it? And Bolivia borders Peru and Brazil. Peru has been tilting more and more towards China. Beijing has invested billions of dollars in Peru as part of their Belt and Road Initiative, the Chance Port, for example. And then you've got obviously Brazil, which is a major force of, I would say, of the region. I mean, they stand their ground and they stand up to Trump as well, as you can see with Lula standing up to Trump. How are these three looking at what's happening in Bolivia? Because I'm sure it concerns them as well.
Well, I think the U.S. Role has diminished substantially in this century in Latin America. Not only because you have new players, the massive process of globalization that brought many of the countries in Latin America to become players, exporting goods all over the place. This allowed many of these countries to take distance with United States, which is not the main buyer of the goods. And then you have a number of and China, a new player, becoming substantially involved in many countries, not only countries classically left oriented, but even Ecuador, which is a right wing government now. They have relations with China and they want to maintain them. So the role of the United States regarding the region in terms of political decisions or influence, what they did is that Trump in the first administration counted on Bolsonaro, and he was his main in the field, playing not American politics, but playing, let's say, the overall influence towards a more right-wing position in the world. but that was that didn't last long. And so after Bolsonaro left power, or after Trump, sorry, after Trump left power, Biden came in. But Biden had to face a very dramatic change in the world, especially the war in Ukraine. So again, Latin America kind of went to in terms of priorities, that went to the last, the underground. So and now again, it, it, the role of the U.S., I would say that the Trump administration is playing wait and see, and they are saying, okay, maybe what's going to happen is that we're going to have a right wing new government, and then perhaps there's going to be a rearrangement of the region on the basis of right wing governments, because you have Milei in Argentina. You have Novoa in Ecuador. You have a new president in Uruguay. You would have Bolivia. You would have Peru, and who knows what's going to happen in Chile if the left doesn't get its act together in Chile. They have elections in November, so that would be, and that would have nothing to do in real terms with any action of the U.S. The only so China, on the other hand, China has been involved in many countries, and but the kind of situation of Bolivia in particular is a bit tricky, because the Chinese learned, you know, learned, but the difficult way they learned how to deal with some Latin American countries, especially Venezuela, because they did invest. They put tons of money for a long list of projects, from railroads or construction of a number of infrastructures, which ended up having a huge debt of Venezuela, which has been, to a long percent, there was 70% unpaid debt. So, I don't think the Chinese will, in the event of a triumph of mass, which is unlikely, I don't anticipate China being involved. First, because most of the oil or the gas companies are state-owned, and now they have the experience of dealing with state-owned companies in Venezuela and other places, so they kind of back off from that. So I don't think that China will be directly involved in this place, and you're right. I think the one who might be involved is Brazil, because Brazil has said, okay, if we are ready, and he's at the moment he is kind of the interim president of the BRICS. She said we are ready to use BRICS as a substitute from the IMF, and put together a program for Bolivia to get out of the deep waters. The question is, it's never happened before. I mean, there's been never an economic program supported by the BRICS, and who's going to put the money? What are going to be the conditionalities? Nothing is there is clear, and we don't know what if it's going to happen, and I think it's very unlikely that the left will win the election. So we don't know exactly how it will play out, depending on who wins, in this first round.
Thank you, Leonardo. That was a very insightful and detailed conversation on what we can expect in Bolivia. And if we do go, I mean, you're very certain that there is going to be a runoff. And if there is, we would definitely love to have you back. And I'm sure our viewers would be excited to have more insights into why Bolivia is important and why the world needs to pay attention to that election.
Sure. And I think I mean, Bolivia has a good chance. No matter who wins, I think Bolivia has a good chance of overcoming this crisis they're going on and they're going through, and maybe have a better perspective for the decades to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Join the conversation at Fair Observer and subscribe to our YouTube channel.